Okay, welcome everybody to another Wednesday SaaS Founder Show. It's Andy Helko, CEO of Insivia. Tony, my usual co-host, is having internet connection issues, so it's just me today doing our interview, and I'm really excited for our guest, and I'm going to bring on Lucien, uh,
Hello.
founder of Digitevent. And I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me in, and I'm really happy to be with you
Where are you
today.
coming in from? We hear a little bit of
Um,
an accent, don't we?
oh yeah, oh you noticed that? No, I'm based in Paris, France, so kind
No,
of long distance, but actually we share some same reality as founders, so I think it will work the same.
I agree. It doesn't matter. We've talked to founders all over the world, and I don't think it matters where you're at. I
Yeah.
mean, the journey, there's still very similar challenges. I actually was at an event with entrepreneurs in China a year or so ago, and I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's the same issues that tend to pop up.
Unfortunately, otherwise we would all go to the same place. But
Exactly. So, why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about you and your company?
Yep, with pleasure. So I'm Lucien, and I'm one of the two co-founders of Digitevent. And Digitevent is actually an event platform for both live and, in-person and virtual events. So we originally based in Paris, France. We were founded in 2013, I think. Yes.
Okay.
And personally, I manage all the tech and product part of the company. So I'm basically not the guy talking to the clients, but when something happens, I'm behind.
So we can ask you all the tough technical questions here.
uh, Hopefully, yes.
Some, right? I was looking through your website. Such a really timely platform with everything that's going on and the changes between both in-person and virtual events and hybrid events. So that's got to be exciting, and I definitely want to dig into how the changes in the world have impacted you. But maybe you could start out telling me a little bit about origin story. I really like to hear, how did people get started? Were you in another role? How did you come up with the concept, and then how did you get into starting?
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot to talk about the last year, which was just crazy. But actually, the beginning of the story of Digitevent is quite interesting too, because I think we were not. I would not imagine that I would do what I do today 10 years ago at all. I met my partner at the university. We were both studying finance, and we finished in 2010, and we started working for some time. He was doing M&A, and I was doing structured products for banking. And every week we used to call. We were very friends. We're still very friends. And every week we used to call and say, "Oh, that's not for us. We want some adventure. Look at them, those bunkers. It's so boring." And we were just dreaming of doing the things our own way and kind of, just having fun. And it was in 2011. And what happened at that time, it was, I don't know if you remember that, but when people used to see an iPad, it was like they were seeing a Ferrari on the streets. It was just stupid, but you had an iPad at home, and someone visited you, and he saw the iPad, and he didn't even care that you had a new apartment. He just jumped in on the iPad and started playing with it. And we say, okay, that's we have to do something with the apps. And it was not the very beginning, but still it was really going up. And we said, okay, what is our skill set? Well, we know very well Paris because we're born here, and we know very well the city, and we have a chance to live in a city where we have the most the most touristic city in the world. So let's buy some iPads, and let's put them in hotels, and then let's rent them to tourists with 4G because 4G was extremely expensive. And don't worry, I'm coming to the point because I know it's
a great story. I love hearing it.
And after 3 months, we decided that it was actually a really shitty idea for many reasons. But we were very proud of not, showing that we failed, and we started thinking, okay, what do? We have two options. Option one is we go back into finance or just more regular job, something we know we can have a job easily. And option two is, okay, we have this partnership with Samsung back in the days, and we have like 50 tablets. And we knew that there was a market for renting tablets for events. So we say, okay, let's do it. We don't really want to do that, but at least we will see. And we started renting the tablets. And every week we were buying more and more because there were more and more projects, and 50 and 70, 100, 200, 300. And at some point it became a real business. And in 2012, there was an opening of a store for Mercedes in Normandy. And an agency wrote us and say, oh, you know what? I would like to rent like 10 tablets, and I need a software to do the check-in at the door. Say, that's interesting. And since I was very young, I used to do like websites for my father, and loved it. And I say, okay, you know what? It's Wednesday. The event is on Saturday. That's perfect. I have 2 days. I'm gonna do it. So I coded the software in 2 days, took 10 iPads, took my grandma's car, headed to Normandy, and did the event. And it was great. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
And I went back and I told my partner, look, there is something going on here. And it was the beginning. We started to do a mailing to some event agencies and staffing agencies to say, we have this software, which is really cool for check-in at events. And it started like that, and we created a different company from the rental company, which, by the way, still exists, that rental company. But I don't think that's the topic of today. And we created Digitevent from that day.
There's so much to unpack there. It's such a great story. I think, just for folks that are out there, the idea that you started something, you realize that you needed to pivot and change ideas, hacking something together. I love it. I taught myself how to program years ago, and I love the idea when you've got something, just figure out how to make it happen to see if it could work. And then really the problem and challenge coming to you for the opportunity, you always have to, understand if the market's viable, but really that opportunity came to you.
Yeah, but also something, I think a good teaching from that story also is that actually, most of the time we don't make the effort to do the thing because actually we don't see where it leads. And probably it was very irrational to do that at the time. But we were saying yes to everything because it was underpriced, it was crazy, and nobody would have accepted to do that. But actually, if you do something just to learn and like see and learn, actually many things happen in life from those first tests. And I think sometimes it's worth doing something that is not necessarily totally rational, just because something may come out of this. And it will not be 100% of the times, but even if it's 5% or 10%, actually it can lead to outcomes that is completely unexpected, that would never have happened otherwise. And I think that's interesting somehow.
Yeah, I love that too. I think I completely agree with you. If you're kind of following a path and you're too logical, those like magical inventions and innovations might not happen.
Yeah, will be no surprise. If you make perfectly rational decisions all the time, it's so predictable that you will have no surprise at the end also.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, we talk to a lot of companies about strategic planning, and I'm sure you have it, and there's this balance. And then especially as you get more established, obviously you have to plan so that people have objectives and a direction and things that they need to, follow. But I think in those early stages, like you're saying, that opportunity to be a little bit wild, you have it a little bit more at those early stages.
Yeah, and probably that's, if you extrapolate that, it's maybe one of the reasons why large companies have difficulties to innovate, because it's so processed and so structured that, it's predictable.
Yeah. So let's move forward a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you talked a little bit about getting those first customers. So what was the path that looked like from kind of a product in its infancy and a couple of customers to really help you start moving forward? And, what did the first, 2 or 3 years of an established product look like for you?
Yeah. So we had that chance to have that rental companies that had many clients in the event industry, many agencies. So we have those contacts. So it was kind of easy to just say, hey, hello, we have something new here. So I think that was a great chance. The second chance we had is that there was a true natural demand for the product at that time, and we were quite few actors doing this. So we had a natural traction also from the market. And then the third part is kind of a strength and a weakness also, is that we always did this the hard way, meaning that actually when you call people and you do good outbound, it's just statistical. You will have answers and you will have projects. We probably didn't do enough marketing at that time, and a lot of real structured sales with a sales team that was just with a good CRM and just doing the job, saying, hey, we have that, let's do a demo. And there was just project because there are events all the time. So I think that's how we started it. And maybe that's one of your next questions. But of course, this led to a lot of requests from clients because the product was so young. And every day, really every day, we had someone saying, oh, but can we do that? And can we do that? And can we do that? And I think that until today, every day we have someone saying, oh, can we add that? And I think that's how it went and how we developed the product so much until today.
Well, how'd you filter that? I think one of the challenges that I've seen with companies is they get all those requests and then they get sent in wrong directions.
Yeah.
How did you kind of handle that?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because at first, or for the first months, we say, oh, look, that's not what we want to do. We want to do something scalable, because if we go and say yes to everybody, of course, we will get lost. Very hard to have a good message, to market the thing. And you know what? Let's just do the best check-in app, and that's it. And simple, efficient, we do it. The problem is we are in the event industry, and the event industry is very, very special in the sense that we are not a SaaS like in any other industry, because we have there are big projects and it's very local and it's very diverse, and the clients are not really experts of technologies, and they really need an all-in-one solution. So if you tell them, look, I have that thing for the check-in, but I cannot do batch printing, they would say they cannot get the batch printing elsewhere and just connect it. There is no Zapier for that. Same for registration, same for ticketing, same for matchmaking. It's kind of a hassle for them to match the solutions.
Yeah.
Because it's on a project based. If you purchase a CRM, you can take the time to just connect everything properly and use all your tools, because you're going to use that for 5 years, right?
Right.
But for an event, you cannot do that. You have a short-term vision sometimes. So you need a product that kind of offers everything. So that is very tricky. And I think the big challenge when you receive a request is to just understand that request and just saying, okay, does it make sense for the product as a whole, or does it make sense only for the client? So that's one big thing. If it makes sense for the product as a whole, is it the right time to do it, or is there something that are much more important to do at the moment because it will have a much bigger impact on the platform? And how far does it push us from our current product? Does it change our strategy or not? And based on all that mix of information, you make a decision to add it now, don't add it, or put it in the roadmap for later. So it's a very special thing. And that's at the beginning. After, of course, when you grow the business, you have your own roadmap and you invert a bit how things work. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, you miss so much let's say to complete the need of the client that you become crazy. And I think all the event platforms on the world had the same story. And if they say no, I think it's not possible. Even Hopin today have the problem. This is why they're buying companies everywhere all the time, because they miss so much and they know that they were good on the virtual events, but know that physical in-person event come back, they miss 90% of the features. So, Well,
I think one of the tougher things is when you're in your early days is that you don't have as many clients, you're really hungry for revenue. And so if you lose a deal because you're missing a feature, your instant gut reaction is, I've got to get this built in there. Whereas when you're more established and you've got clients and you have revenue, if one person says no, it's not feeling like this is going to significantly impact the business moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. But it can significantly impact you if you know that he's right to say no because he requested a feature that he deserved. If someone says no because I think he just wants something that is a bit like just crazy or just for him, honestly, you have to just don't pay attention, because that's not your client and it's not scalable and it does not make sense to have this client actually. However, if his point is right and you realize that actually his feature makes sense for his real need, you have to listen to the client. And too many startups and too many SaaS companies, they just say, okay, that's my product, you want it or leave it. And I think that's also a mistake, because if the feedback is right and it makes sense for the user, you have to make your best effort to provide him. Otherwise, you just miss your mission,
Yeah.
You have to make a right judgment. I think that's the tricky thing.
Yeah, and it's, in talking to founders, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some do it extremely logically. Others have different methods, or democracy versus, one person solely making that decision. But you have to figure out what's right for you and for your company at the end of the day.
Probably the right way is to have everyone involved as much as possible in the decision. Usually, if you ask the sales, he would say one thing. If you ask the customer success, they would say one thing. But then, if you gather everyone around the table and you say, okay, guys, look, we have only this amount of time to do the development, and we have 5 features. Now we have to vote, or what is the priority for the long run of the product? Then the decision will be completely different, and they will say, oh, you know what, that is maybe not that important given the list that you just gave. And I think that's a good way to start. If you have everyone to agree on what you have to do, probably you're not making a wrong decision.
Yeah, actually, I think we interviewed a founder once and said that they would just sometimes put a button in the app to see how many people would click on it. And so there's also the other side of getting feedback from the users and, trying to really understand their drive as much as, what the internal team thinks as well.
Yeah. And also another thing that can be a bit tricky is that usually what the client asks is very often a solution, not a need, and that can lead to very, very, very bad decisions from the SaaS company. If you decide to apply the solution and not wonder, okay, what does he try to achieve, you have good chances to give the wrong solution. So you really say, okay, but what is he really trying to do? And is it the perfect way to do it? Is it the more generic way to do it? And I think you have to deconstruct the each request. And that applies for product development. And that, of course, applies also to sales. Actually, you have to listen carefully, but never take the solution that is offered as granted. You have to come yourself to the solution and deconstruct the demand. And that's so important. Otherwise, you do really bad choices.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Now, in your journey, was there any certain tactic or moment that really helped you take off, I guess, or really become much more established? And what I'm looking for a little bit is, for founders out there, are there things that, are catalysts for growth?
Yeah, for sure. We had one chance, is that since we do events, we have visibility somehow. We have visibility because we power hundreds of event websites all the time. So that's natural visibility for us. And I think that there is a positive effect with time. The more you have, the more you get.
Yeah.
Because the more you are seen, and I think that's huge. And same for at the door events, because when you have a check-in, every single attendee that steps into the door potentially sees your tablet and asks questions. And have so many people say, "Oh, I saw you at this event," or "I saw you at that event," and I think that it really helped us. So that is one thing. And I think the second one is probably when we got big contracts. I think it really helps because it's a good opportunity to communicate and to reassure everyone around you.
Yeah.
For example, recently we won the project for all the events at the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, right? So every time you say it, you say, okay, so those guys, they must be kind of serious. Otherwise,
good validation.
Security in terms of how they work, in terms of the quality of the solution, they would not have made it if not. So I think that's also a very, very important point, is just use your references because they are your best friend.
But I will have to say that I think both of those are hard for early stage and certain types of businesses, because some don't get the visibility, from a customer using their software because they might be behind the scenes. And then others, obviously when you're starting out, you don't have those big contracts. So, I mean, just for those that are out there, that can feel daunting.
Yeah, something we didn't do and that I think is a very, very good and cheap strategy is actually partnerships. Partnerships is something that we really underestimate, and it's so easy to do actually, because everyone is looking for visibility. And what we're doing here is a good example, but we can do for everything. Let me give you an example that was 2 hours ago. I registered for a service online, and I received an email from the founder of that SaaS, right? And say, "Oh, hi Lucien, I'm very happy that you became a client. Look, I think it can be interesting if you would answer that survey, and with this survey, we will do a client case on our website and a blog article. And I think it's great visibility and it's great SEO for you too." And I think that's brilliant, because if he does that, then probably once he will be published, because he's also a famous company, once the article will be published, the first thing I will do is just LinkedIn it. And I will first I purchased his service, so I'm a client, and for free, I will be happy and proud to just publish on my LinkedIn his service. Right. and I did the work to write articles for him, right? So that's kind of tricky things that is very cheap, but that really work and provides visibility. And I think that when you start, and especially if you don't have a lot of money at the beginning, you should go very deep into those solutions.
Yeah,
because
we talk with a lot of folks about that, what I call the hacking, like marketing or growth hacking, of how do you find these unique ways to kind of get out there and find customers, or leverage word of mouth or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that I would go for that. If you have limited funding, funds. I would go for that. Yeah.
Now, did you, speaking of funds, did you bootstrap? Did you raise capital? How did you guys, go about that?
Yeah. So things are changing now, but we are very special in that thing because we bootstrap from the beginning. And we started all our companies with 1,000 euros. and today on Digitevent, we are a team of over 30%. And with all the businesses, we are more than 60, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would suggest that to someone or not, because there are amazing things with that, but there are also big problems, of course, big issues. But we're still self-financed at the moment, and it will probably change soon. But yeah.
That's great. I mean, I think, and I've had this conversation with many others, is that everybody's kind of got a different opinion about being funded, versus bootstrapping. And I mean, there's so many different factors that go into play. Was that a very conscious decision that you did not want to raise capital?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is don't get funded if you don't need to, or if you don't know what you're going to do with the money. As I told you earlier, the event SaaS is something that is actually not real SaaS, because you have a lot of companies that is ranging from 500K to 5 million. And there is a reason for that, because we have an issue with scalability in the industry. And I think many companies that raised money, they just collapsed after because they were not able to scale as they imagined. So before COVID, I think it was an issue because the clients are very local and the projects are local and they want someone that is nearby. And I think it's not that easy in the event industry to scale a lot because you have little advantages and big difficulty to reach outside your natural area. And you see it in every countries of the world. For even American solutions, you don't find them in France at all, even though some raised a lot of money. And you see Scandinavian solution in Scandinavia and Swiss solution in Swiss and German solution in Germany. And actually, that's the way the industry is. And there is probably a microeconomic reason behind that. So I think if you don't need money, you must not do it. But actually, you must have sufficient funding to have a serious middle management and not to bootstrap too much, and to make sure that you as a CEO, your job is not to do the operational, but to really drive the company.
Right.
So if you have sufficient traction and business and revenue to have that middle management and to kind of distance yourself from the operational, I think that you can be very comfortable in a self-funded company. If you cannot do that, I think you have a structural issue, and either the business is not profitable anymore, is sufficiently profitable, or you have to raise money. That's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just kind of moving a little bit in a different direction. Talk about your role, and not just your role today, but what I'm always interested in founders is what it started out as and how it's evolved over time. Yeah. Just because I think it's interesting at every stage, it changes and adapts. And I'm kind of curious for you personally, how has your position in the company evolved and changed?
Yeah, I think for the 5 first years, clearly that was a mistake. But you as a founder, you kind of have to see everything a bit, because when something happens, in the end, you kind of see it, because it's in a small company, because we were like from 10 to 20 at the time. So it's too small company to really let the operational do, and it's too big to get involved seriously. So it's a tricky size, I think. My role was I was CTO, and I was responsible for the product development. But also you are involved in the recruitment of your customer success. When there is a new sales manager, you have to see it in the interview, and also like you have all the strategy in mind. And I think it's too much, especially if, like us, you have because we had other companies in which we had this issue. So you have to force yourself to delegate, because there is no way you can survive otherwise, and you need people you trust, and you have to build a good team. So my advice is, don't wait like me 5 years to do that. As soon as possible, and as soon as you know that your business, you are on something that is serious, just build the right team and have the right people at the right position, and people you can trust.
Yeah.
And that's just, you have to do it. Even if it's very hard, there is no way you cannot do it, because it has been done in every company all over the world.
Well, and I think early stage folks struggle with that, finding the right people, being able to attract them to something that is so early stage. I mean, sometimes it happens, but especially today where the job market is really tight, and the salaries can get higher. It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, you have to provide a good mix to your employees. You have to really have a project in which you believe, and you make them believe. I think the company culture is something that really helps you to recruit. And you have also, it must be a win-win relationship. So if you manage to create that win-win relationship with your team, probably that in exchange also you will get more loyal employees and people that really get into the adventure and really play the game. Every time I recruit someone, I tell them at the beginning, I say, okay, look, you're going to step into a place that is self-financed. And if we did everything we did until today, it's because everyone that joined us is really convinced that they have something to bring. And if you are amazing, then you can change the thing for good, because we are small enough so that when you leave the company, as the further possible, like in time, but when you will leave the company, you can say, okay, this company, I changed it personally.
Yeah, you impacted.
You can impact it, and positively or negatively. So you have to understand the responsibility that you have. And when you tell them that, and you show them that actually you consider them kind of business partners, actually you see that they make the company and the product their own, and it's kind of their own baby too. And they can make it grow, and they grow with you. So it's awesome. And of course there are many other things than that. But really having people wanting to grow the baby is fundamental to me.
Now, with that culture piece, are there any things that you actively do to try and shape the culture, or have you really let it, grow organically as the company's grown?
Well, when we hire people, we try to make sure that they really fit with the team. We don't only, there are many things we do. First, on the skill part, actually we are very, very demanding. So we prefer to wait long time to hire someone that really we convinced of, because it's too important. Most of companies are run by people. If the people are not good or motivated enough or whatever, at some point the company will not make the job, because people make the job in the company. So first, we be extremely demanding when you hire someone. Don't hesitate to say no, even if you have a doubt. And if you have a doubt, usually it means you have no doubt. So just don't do it, because in the end, you will just lose time and pay twice the money. So it's hard, but if you have a doubt, don't do it. So that's one thing. The second thing is we always ask the team to see the new candidates, and if there is an issue or it's not the same culture or the same. We feel that they will not enjoy having lunch together.
Yep.
Probably we don't do it because it has to be like a family in the end. So people have to, they have to go and just have fun and have souvenirs together, and maybe like just drink in the weekend together and just have fun, because remote work is fine, but actually when you have a group of friends and you work with friends, that's just amazing, and you remember that for your life also. And I think work is much more than just making money. Work is where you spend most of your day, and probably more time than with your wife or husband. So it has to be something you enjoy, and we try to hire people that we get along together very well. And for example, last year we were very, very happy because we had a couple in the company, and this couple is now very, very serious. And for us, it's very satisfying to see that. It means that it's a group of friends and a group of people that get along very well, and that it will last.
Right.
Even after the company, even after they leave the company, people that used to work with us, every time there is a party, they want to come back. They come back and they come just to say hello all the time, and I think it's very rewarding.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's such an important piece, and especially today, it's a challenge because some people aren't in the office. Are you guys currently, working from home and virtual, or are you back in the office working together?
Well, like everyone, for sure, we changed in the recent year. Remote work was not at all what we favored before, and of course we had to change on that. I'm still not completely sure that it's suited similarly to everyone. I think it's very personal, and I think the rules must be very individual in that matter, and which makes it also very difficult, because as a company you cannot say, if you say everyone is allowed to work remote 3 days a week, maybe it's not enough for some people and it's too much for some others. So I think it has to be very individual, and it has to be after a certain time in the company, because it's impossible to do a serious onboarding and to give that culture to the employee if they are remote. You have to gain trust and mutual trust. So at the beginning, I think it's very complicated, but for sure there are great things with that in terms of concentration to get the work done. I think it's amazing, but it has to be very balanced, and you have to really listen to your employee, and it depends on the job. If you think it's necessary for them or not, at certain point of their life, if they have young children or not, and you have to accommodate, and you have to be very smart and not give one unique answer. That's one advice. And the second advice also is, I think people, same for hybrid events or virtual events, they rush a bit too much in saying, that's the new thing. And I think we don't have enough, I don't know the word in English, of course, distance, to make a proper proper judgment on that.
Yeah.
And time will tell us, because it's too early to really make a prognostic of is it really, really necessary for everybody, and how much. I think it's complicated.
And I'm kind of curious how COVID impacted the business overall, and really the angle that I'm most interested in is, I think of it as a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And how many people in the world had COVID under their threats, external things. And so, for me, it's about these outside impacts that you can't control.
Yeah.
It can be very, positive or negative, very, life and business changing. So how did everything that happened impact you, the business? How did you think about it?
Yeah. For sure, it has a tremendous impact, as you can imagine. At first it was a shock for the whole company, because in March 20, we had every day's emails from clients saying, "Oh, you know what? We cancel the event. We cancel the event. All the projects, all the quotes. Oh, we're not going to do it." And say, "Okay, well, what's going to happen, right? What's happening now?" So we were lucky also to be in France at the beginning, because we had a lot, like very, very good support from the government to help us at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great chance. And of course, we stepped back saying, okay, we have to save the thing, and things a bit, think like, okay, what will it change on the long run, and how do we adapt to that, and how do we innovate, not just react and be defensive, but just how do we use that as an opportunity to just change the game, and also change our role in the competition. So we developed, like it was ready for June or July. We developed the whole set of features for live events in 3 months. It was extremely intense. In 3 months, I think we developed what we used to do in 3 years. It was crazy. Worked all the time. It was a bit back in 2013 for us.
Yeah.
And thinking a new product, asking the clients, explaining the teams, marketing, creating an offer, doing everything in just a few months. Of course, we had the chance to have the clients ready and very open to new opportunities, so that was a great chance. But still, we have to convince them that this new product has potential, and they have not to cancel the events, and that, look, this is even much better than what you had before. So we developed a full solution to have program on the event, where people could go to live sessions, integrate with all video conference platforms, like anything, Zoom, GoToWebinar, Whereby, Teams. And also developing something that I think is very important is, how do we maintain connection between people and between attendees? So we created that matchmaking platform where people can just, make meetings while being remote with some AI behind, and that just was amazing for us, because we had a lot of demands for that, and we kept saying, "Oh, you know what? This is not our market. This is not our market." And when we decided to do it, we did it for the virtual market from the beginning. So I think we had one of the best products we could ever imagine, and we had a huge traction on that. And this year that started so bad turned out to be amazing for us, and we were lucky, because the event industry was so impacted that it was just crazy. It was just a crazy year, I think.
How do you manage through the chaos? If you did all of that in this tight time frame of software and marketing and all these other pieces, one, how did you manage the chaos a little bit? And then two, how did you keep the team excited and engaged while all of this is going on in the world?
Yeah. Well, first we had to kind of reassure everyone, saying that what's happened is just kind of fate, and we have something that we will remember all our life, because what we're living now is just unbelievable, and we just have to say, okay, we have to work as a, it's like a mission. We have to go back to exit that stronger together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone was really involved and wanted to do their best to just show the world that we can do something. So that was cool. Then developing a new product is also very cool. It's very hard, but it was also very cool. So for the dev team, it was really nice. For the marketing team, it was also very exciting. Same for the customer success, because we were building something. And I think human beings love to build things.
Right.
So it's very exciting to do that. Of course, it was very stressful for us. We had not to show the stress too much. But after a few months, we saw that traction coming back, and it was very rewarding for everyone, I think.
Now, would you say that all of this changed the trajectory of the business? And I'm kind of thinking, you've talked a lot about being local and regional.
Yeah.
Is it now, worldwide? Is the roadmap completely different for the future? Like, is the trajectory different than you think it was before all this?
Well, I think this podcast is a great testimony for that. No, for sure. What happened this year is that it changed. Virtual events is a shift from local market to global market.
Right.
Sure. Because there is much less specificity in the virtual event world that there is in the in-person event, which make the platforms much more scalable. And we were 90%. We had 90% of our clients in France. Now I think we have 50 to 60%, which means that we gained a lot of traction in the rest of the world. We also hired someone that is just accountable just for the international market. She's only speaking in English all the time, and she just manages demand from everywhere except Europe. And that's amazing for us. And I could not imagine that before COVID. Mm-hmm. So it was a huge accelerator. Of course, we are not alone also, because it happened to many platforms. But at some point, I think that either you are on the right or on the left, and some just had the worst year of their life and they will probably disappear because it was a bit too much. Mm-hmm. And some went out stronger of the COVID. So I think it's quite hard. Maybe it's quite necessary for an economy. But for sure, there are some good points in that situation, because it helps companies to grow, some companies to grow and do things better and to scale, to have better processes, better product, better solution, more clients. And it's very virtuous, I think.
Well, I mean, going back to where you and I started in this conversation of early stage, that chaos of trying new things, talk about the world forcing everybody into a little bit of chaos to produce tons of innovation. And so it's interesting that if you look at it from what we talked about earlier, that, I mean, it really did what you're saying, is that people had to try new things and be adaptable. And there was a lot of innovation that happened.
Yeah, it created a lot of innovation. I think we also, same as remote work, I think we have to be cautious about what will be the post-COVID event industry. I think I'm going to be very honest now. I think for many, many reasons, too many people say that the future is hybrid and virtual. But I think it's the reason why people say that also is because they have interest to say that. Because if you have an event that you maintain every year, and you have to do it virtual this year because you cannot drop your brand, because an event is like a brand, right? You do it every year. If you stop doing it 1 year, you lose your client, you lose your brand, you lose your attendee, and you give room to someone else to just take that market. So everybody says, virtual was amazing. It was much beyond our expectations, and we cannot imagine a world without virtual. I think there is some part that is true in that, but it's probably a bit exaggerated. Mm-hmm. Especially in the last 6 months, where I think the virtual market for events is a bit saturated, in the sense that it's so easy to start an event that actually you can spend your day in events. Whereas, so it reduces the quality. Everybody competes with each other in the event industry. I'm not talking about the platforms. I'm talking about.
I get it. Yeah.
And it's no longer that much a signal of quality or reference in the industry. And I think the reasons why people used to do events before is because they wanted to create that experience, that link, to tight links with attendees and show that they are the reference in the industry. And there are things that happen with in-person relationships that actually does not happen with virtual. So I'm convinced that there will be much more virtual events. I think that some format for some events and for needs, virtual is just awesome. But I don't believe that much, and that most events will be hybrid in the future. I think that's either utopia, either just like you have to say it to be fashionable or whatever, or say, oh yeah, I mean the good future is hybrid. I don't believe that at all. But I can be wrong, because no one can tell you what's going to happen.
I mean, I like the pointer. It's a new point that I hadn't thought about, is that the barrier to entry of an event is so much lower that potentially the quality gets lower, and that causes a reverse back to the other direction.
It's not necessarily that the quality is lower. It's just that when you produce something that is live, the barrier between live event and just a replay or a TV show is just very thin, And at some point, are you really trying to create an event, or do you just want to promote a video or to do a landing page and just get leads, And for sure, the video format will gain a lot from the COVID, and that's no doubt. But why do you need always to do an event just to provide some content? And here there is something that is a bit touchy. And that does not really necessarily, it's not that obvious. Something also that is not that obvious is if you work in a company and you say, I take a day off to go to that fair because I need to exhibit, or I need to meet people, or to discover new product, it's fine. If you say to your boss, oh, you know what, I need a day off to go to this virtual event, it's a bit like, oh yeah, he's going to watch TV all day. And it's, it will never, I don't think we are ready to accept it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And in a post-COVID world, that will not be that easy. So many things like this get into into the situation. And
yeah. So what's the future look like for you guys over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
What do you see happening for the business, for the product?
Yeah, I think that we have three main directions that is very important for us. First of all, I think continuing to be global is very important, because we show that actually we can have some very happy clients, even not in France. And the clients we gain, I think they trust us, and we have now that possibility to say, oh, you know what, we worked with this guy in Mexico, or we worked with that guy in I don't know, in Germany, and it's the first step that will allow us also to get credibility globally. So I think one of our priority is definitely to go below 50% of the French market of our clients from the French market. That's extremely important for us. And by the way, we are looking for distributors, or for maybe even complementary solutions that would be interested to partner with us and to help us achieve that. So if you are somewhere based in the US and you feel that, oh, maybe I should talk to this guy, just shoot a message. We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Just to do that and to achieve that, probably we have to move from a sales-driven company to a marketing-driven company.
Mm.
So for sure, the marketing is something of the future for us, and we invest more and more in that direction. And the third part is just continue to build a product that is awesome. We really believe that our product is awesome, and because when you use it, you have this stickiness, and you feel that, oh, you have to test the product to understand, but you say, oh, you know what, actually it's really easy. The result, like the event website, is just clean, beautiful, easy to create. The flow, the UX, everything is perfect. And I think that we have to continue in that direction to create a product that is just perfectly aligned with our clients. And I think there is a big opportunity in that, because if you actually in the event platforms, there is the same promise for everyone, but the products are very, very different. So I think that's a great opportunity for us also to demonstrate that we have something more than the others.
Awesome. Before my last question for you, that I always close with, and you kind of hinted at this, but where do people reach you? You know, what are you looking for? You talked about, obviously, folks that might want to partner in the US.
Yes.
Who else are you looking to talk to, and, you know, how can they reach you?
Well, first, if you come by Paris, I would be happy to just, you know, invite you to the office and just grab a coffee and show you what you have to see around. So if you come to Paris, it's very easy.
I'm on my way.
If the first step is just maybe to ask me on LinkedIn. Just contact me, ask me anything. I love to talk and just to have interesting chats with people. So just send me a message on LinkedIn. And of course, have a look at the solution, digitevent.com, which is where you have to go if you are somewhere related to the event industry, or organize events, or are married to an event organizer. Just spread the word, digitevent.com. And if you say that you come from that podcast, I will make sure that you have a special attention when you contact us.
That's awesome. So where I want to end is, I always ask, if you were able to go back in time, you know, to that 2012 time frame, right before you're really getting started, and have coffee with yourself, what advice would you give to your past self about the future?
That's actually a good question. Well, one thing probably is, even though it was very hard for the event market, I would maybe have tried, if you're a SaaS business and you're not based in the US, just try to think local first. Don't think global first. I think that's something that really missed to most of the SaaS businesses that are not based in an English-speaking country, or in not a very, very small country. For example, if you take Israel, for example, the reason why they succeed also so much is because they don't have a national market, right? So if you consider your market as the world to start with, probably it may be a bit difficult, but if you scale up for good. And at some point, we started a bit too much as an agency at the beginning, and we still paid to maybe less, but we still paid somehow today. And so think global. That's I think that is extremely important. And the second thing also is probably related to the previous one, but if you feel that you have a momentum, at some point, don't be conservative or pessimistic. Don't over bootstrap things, because you will pay things twice. It's very good to bootstrap to test, but once your test is validated, you have to just go for it and trust yourself, and think big. That's I think is extremely important.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Lucien, thank you so much for, you know, being part of this conversation. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I know our audience will. So I really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome, everybody. Well, we will see you next week, and check out DigitEvent, and we'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care.